Large parts of southern and eastern Africa are covered with woodlands. In some countries, more than 80% of the population live in rural areas and generate their subsistence and cash income from small-scale farming. In Zambia, many of these small-scale farmers complement their earnings through gathering and sales of forest products, such as wild fruits, mushrooms, and honey. Honey gathering and traditional beekeeping methods have been practiced since ancient times. In 1993, the Smallholder Development Project, supported by the European Union, started a beekeeping development program in the Copperbelt province of Zambia. The project focuses on three components: the introduction of appropriate beekeeping technologies, training of farmers in beekeeping, and the processing and marketing of bee products. The following three films present each aspect of this beekeeping support program separately. The climate and vegetation of Zambia offer a great potential for beekeeping and honey production. Most of the country is covered with Myombo woodlands, which is providing two honey harvesting seasons, usually in May and November. The most common way of getting honey is to cut holes in the trees where bees have settled in order to get access to the sweet. However, many trees are just cut for a handful of honey, a practice which is also called honey hunting. In some parts of Zambia, bees are kept in hives, which are made from the bark of trees. These hives are suspended high up in trees very far from villages in the forest. The hives are usually left to the tunes of fortune until bees may occupy them or not, and may produce honey in small or large quantities. This method can be called appropriate to the economy of small-scale farmers. No capital or investment is required. Locally available resources and materials are utilized, and a side income is generated from the sales of honey in times of financial hardships. Unfortunately, these methods are environmentally harmful because a large number of trees are destroyed each year. The yields are usually low and long distances have to be covered when carrying the honey to the home place. The bark hive method may still be sustainable and work well in areas with an extensive woodland cover. However, settlements, agriculture, and charcoal burning have depleted large parts of the forests in Zambia. Particularly in semi-urban areas, the traditional methods of honey hunting and beekeeping are on the decline. Therefore, the Smallholder Development Project launched the introduction of alternative methods of beekeeping. The most important question in such projects is the type of technology which shall be introduced to farmers. The frame hive technology, which is practiced in developed countries, depends on expensive and sophisticated equipment, which has to be imported. The frame hive system has failed almost everywhere in developing countries, where small-scale farmers practice their own way of honey production. The first steps were to train farmers in top bar hive beekeeping and to establish a processing plant for bee products. In the carpentry division, all the necessary beekeeping equipment is made. The beekeeper needs a hive or several of them. The hive can be made out of timber, cement, or even mud, which is the cheapest possible way. The top bar hive technology derives its name from a box which is covered by wooden slates, the top bars. The bees build their combs beneath the bars. The single top bars therefore can be lifted with each comb for inspection and management steps. The top bars have to be made very accurately, exactly 33 mm wide, because this matches the natural bee space. If the width of a top bar is larger or smaller, the combs cannot be moved or exchanged, and a proper management of bees is not possible. The top bars have also to be fitted with a strip of beeswax. To prevent the starter strip from dropping off, a groove can be cut to allow the liquid wax to cling to the bar when cooling down. Without a proper starter strip, the bees will build their combs in a random direction, crisscross or even diagonal. Harvesting and movement of top bars become difficult or impossible. In fact, this issue is one of the biggest problems in the top bar hive technology. Most beekeepers never renew the starter strips or apply new strips when expanding their number of hives. The entrance holes at beehives are usually found at one head of the hive. In this project, we followed a different approach, having openings along one side of the hive. Bees in Zambia can be very aggressive at times, and this allows to smoke all combs through the entrance holes before opening. Next to the hive, a beekeeper needs one or more swarm boxes. The swarm boxes follow the same construction principle, shape and measurement like the hive. They are only shorter with 10 top bars because they have to be suspended in trees. The swapping of top bars together with the combs from the swarm boxes to the beehives or vice versa will only work if both have the same measurements. Other equipment and tools which are needed for top bar hive beekeeping will be a smoker for keeping the bees calm, protective clothes, a working knife, and a bee brush for brushing the bees off the combs. More sophisticated beekeepers may also need a queen cage. For honey harvesting, plastic buckets and a strainer or sieve are needed if a beekeeper wants to separate the liquid honey from the comb. Learning beekeeping requires extensive knowledge in bee biology, ecology, and particularly in bee management. The most important step, however, is to get experienced in the appropriate handling of bees which can only be learned at a place where beehives and bees are available. This may be difficult at the start of a beekeeping support program and may require the establishment of training apiaries. As soon as possible, after the first beekeepers have set up their own apiaries near their homes, the training of new farmers should shift to the village. This will also attract and encourage neighbors to join the training scheme. Top-bar hive beekeeping as an alternative method of beekeeping is an appropriate technology because it uses simple equipment and locally available tools and materials. Success, nevertheless, can only be expected if the beekeeper is willing and able to actively direct the development of bees and apply the same management ideas which are practiced elsewhere in beekeeping. The training courses last for 10 days. Although it is quite important to understand the theoretical aspects of beekeeping, practical experience is far more significant. Wooden top-bar hives have become very expensive in Zambia through ever-increasing prices of timber and transport. Small-scale farmers usually cannot afford to purchase wooden bee hives. The Smallholder Development Project, therefore, has been experimenting with various materials in order to find cheaper ways of making bee hives. During the training courses, beekeepers also learn how to make their own beehives out of mud bricks. Simple wooden molds are needed for making the mud bricks. To make the bricks, clay soil has to be mixed with cow dung and water until it gives a muddy compound. Meanwhile, other members of the training group cut grass or reeds, which will give the bricks more stability. One layer of grass horizontal and one layer vertical, and the bricks will not break when transporting them. The head bricks need 2 grooves to keep the side bricks in position. Women can do very well and are also participating in beekeeping.
FIFA, national team.
After drying, a stand has to be constructed out of common house bricks. The grooves of the 2 head bricks keep the side bricks in position. The 4 bottom bricks are the same type like the 2 bricks along each side.
Number 2 Fossa. Look what you have done. I don't know whether
The hive can now be plastered inside and outside with mud. Entrance holes for the bees are spared out by using reed pipes, which will be removed later. Such hives provide an ideal climate for the bees, especially if it gets hot. Bees prefer this type of hives to wood or cement. To protect the hives from rain and sun, it is mandatory to erect a grass shelter, common everywhere as kitchen shelter and called imbalasa. After returning to their villages, the new beekeepers start now making 4 hives each and cover them with the recommended grass shelter. This can be done exclusively from local material. No cash investment is required. When setting up such an apiary, the following precautions have to be considered. Strongness against all weather conditions and termites. Clearing and weeding nearby to fight ant attacks and bushfires. Distance from home or village to avoid harassment by bees, but consider safety from theft. Close water availability for bees. Only if this assignment has been completed, the beekeeper will receive a credit package comprising 120 top bars for 4 hives, a swarm box, 1 veil and 1 smoker. Beekeeping will only be attractive if a reasonable income can be generated for the farmer. Therefore, the costs of inputs must be recovered easily, leaving some profit for the beekeeper. Some beekeepers are able to repair their loans within 1 year after 2 seasons, though most of them need a longer period to settle their debts. This seems to be unreasonably long, but one has to consider that beekeeping has a long perspective. The mud hive technology is a very economical way of keeping bees, though some disadvantages have to be mentioned. The making of hives and shelters is restricted to the dry season between May and October. Many shelters and hives burn every year due to bushfires. There is a solution to all these problems. The hives can also be made out of cement using the same molds. They are more expensive, but they are still much more economical than wooden hives. They last for decades and can be perfectly unsafe. With a small alteration of the bottom brick, which is made in one piece, the hive is resting on upright cement bricks. These bricks are in tins filled with old engine oil. Once the oil is absorbed by the bricks, refilling is only necessary after a long time. These hives do not need a grass shelter if they are protected by a waterproof lid. Shade can be provided under trees which do not shed off their leaves during the hot season. Some more commercially oriented farmers have made cement hives on their own. However, if a project is rendering assistance for this technology, much higher input costs are sustained. The bricks need wires to be inserted, otherwise they will break. Cement has to be bought in town. White sand has to be picked, usually from far places. Transport has to be provided for the distribution of the heavy bricks. The success of beekeeping depends on many factors. Available bee forage, weather conditions, beekeepers' skills and care, pests and diseases, disturbance by people, to mention only a few. One of the most common questions refers to the repayment of loans. In fact, in Zambia, most loan institutions have collapsed. Since the economy has been liberalized, agricultural inputs are hardly affordable and loans are either not available or interest rates are tremendously high. The beekeeping enterprise is employing private extension staff. During the harvesting season, they visit the beekeepers and assist them in cropping their hives. The honey has to be sold to the enterprise as long as the loan period lasts. Afterwards, it is the beekeeper's choice to ask for further assistance from the extension workers, but this service has to be paid for. In Mukushi, an area 100 kilometers away from Mpongwe, a sister project has been established applying the same technology. Here, farmers have set up large apiaries and bee shelters, sometimes containing 20 bee hives. During the last 6 years, more than 200 farmers have been trained in top-bar hive beekeeping, and it is estimated that more than 1,000 mud bee hives have been constructed and harvested. Many farmers have taken up this technology and started making their own beehives, borrowing mods, top bars, smokers, and swarm boxes from neighbors, relatives, and friends. During the last harvesting season, the beekeeping enterprise purchased more than 2 tons of excellent quality honey. Because of the expanding number of farmers and beehives, the quantities are expected to double in the near future.
The gathering of honey from wild bee nests in the Myombo woodlands is a common practice in Zambia. Small-scale farmers who try to generate an income by collecting and selling honey face usually problems in separating the honey from the comb. Processing good quality honey and finding a market is one of their biggest constraints. Beekeeping development projects therefore intend to set up marketing systems and processing facilities for the honey and the other bee products in order to support the small-scale farmers' honey trade. During the honey harvesting season, the farmers come from far away to sell their honey. The honey which they have harvested from back hives or simply collected from wild bee colonies is often a mixture of crushed honeycombs, brood, and pollen. The liquid honey has settled at the bottom of the container. The first look can tell something about the quality. Is the honey clear or cloudy? The honey has now to be tested, and the most important indicator for the quality is the water content. Honey should only be harvested when ripe. The refractometer indicates the water content, which should not be higher than 18%. The next step is to separate the dry comb pieces on top from the liquid honey which has settled at the bottom of the container. Once the honey was harvested and ripe or has been mixed with brood and pollen, it is impossible to process it into a marketable quality. Nowadays, with exposure to liberalized markets, it is a big problem to sell low-grade honey to supermarkets. Therefore, it was decided to use low-grade honey only for brewing honey wine. Most farmers cannot afford plastic or even stainless steel buckets. Such unsuitable containers for honey contribute also to low-grade quality. It would be also too expensive to operate a marketing system by transporting small quantities of honey with vehicles. Collecting points were set up in villages where farmers at certain days can sell their honey and beeswax. Trained extension staff operates with motorbikes or bicycles. Swapping large quantities of honey during daytime will attract many bees to come. This can easily become a nuisance, and containers shall never be left open unnecessarily. At these collecting points, the honey is put in 2 drums which are coated inside with beeswax. At the end of the season, a vehicle can collect the drums and takes them to the processing plant. A drum full of honey will weigh up to 300 kgs, which can hardly be managed by few people. The beekeeping enterprise in Mpongwe has been training farmers in top-bar hive beekeeping and has given inputs on credit to beekeepers. They've set up shelters with 4 bee hives. These hives are made out of mud bricks. The honey is of excellent quality and is bottled and sold as stable honey to supermarkets in Zambia. To be on the safe side, the beekeeping enterprise has also set up its own beehives. With proper management, even in poor seasons, honey can be cropped. The advantage of well-harvested sealed honey is obvious. Such honey can be sold for a maximum price and it can compete with any imported blend. The honey has now to be graded and processed. First, the honeycombs have to be crushed. There should be only pure honeycombs in the bucket without brood or pollen. Bees, which are usually found in the buckets in large numbers after cropping, have to be removed before the combs are crushed. Bees should not fly around in the working place to prevent contamination of honey and in order to protect all goods in the factory from spoilage. Here, bees may live but are not able to enter. The mixture is then put into honey presses where the liquid is separated from the combs. Such honey presses can be made locally. They can also serve for pressing fruits and extracting juices. Larger particles of wax are caught in a strainer. The pressed cake still contains honey, which is difficult to extract. Sometimes the loss in liquid honey counts for up to 35%. Therefore, only small quantities should be pressed once in a time to have a better outcome. The cakes are stored here for further processing into other bee products. The liquid honey is then kept for approximately 1 week to settle in closed buckets. After some days, the remaining wax particles have settled at the top of the honey and have to be removed by a process which is called skimming. Honey should never be heated or even boiled because it will lose its nutritional value. The honey is now ready for bottling. Beware if the honey is now filled in a container for bottling. Small dirt particles, which sometimes cannot be avoided when cropping, settle at the bottom of the bucket. Better to leave something and to pour it in a different container for further filtering. Now, the bottling can start after all necessary preparations have been done, like cleaning the jars. Sometimes the honey in the bottle looks solid. It has become granulated or crystallized. Don't worry. It is the same good and nutritious honey, but it has changed its property, just like water becoming ice. This happens due to the type of sugar which is found in nectar from different plants. Nearly all kinds of honey are liable to solidify after some time. This happens because there are essentially two sugars in honey. One is glucose, a sugar that crystallizes easily, and the other is fructose, which does not granulate easily. It is the quantity of glucose in the honey and its relationship to the amount of water which makes the honey crystallized. Once the honey has become solid in the bottle, you can easily get it liquid by putting the jar in warm water, but not in boiling water. After some time, you can stir it and use it as usual. If the honey has already become solid, it has to be warmed in a water bath. But beware, honey heated above 39 degrees Celsius will lose its nutritional value and get spoiled. Heating has to be controlled carefully and should not last for a long time. The next step is to stir the honey to crush the crystals. This cannot avoid the regranulation, but it keeps the honey soft, and this honey can be sold as a special brand, creamed honey. Another way of harvesting and processing honey is to cut honeycomb pieces from new, fresh, and completely sealed combs. This will only be possible if beehives are available near to the processing plant for easy preparation and packing. As mentioned before, honey is ripe if the comb is completely sealed by the bees with a wax layer. Then, the water content of the liquid honey will be below 18%. In this test of pouring honey, it can easily be seen that this honey contains too much water. There is a danger of fermentation if the honey is harvested too early or if the unsealed combs are cropped. Most of the honey collected from back hives or by honey gatherers does in fact contain too much water or is contaminated in many ways. Hence, the beekeeping project has been experimenting for a long time with the brewing of honey wine. None of us has ever made wine or any other alcoholic beverage before. So we got some books and started trying different recipes. If we look at the pressing cakes, which still contain up to 35% of honey, there is an opportunity to recover even the residues by washing these cakes in water. Alternatively, it is also possible to mix unripe and dead comb honey with water. The outcome is a water sugar solution, the starting point for any wine making. Warm water can be added to the mixture to ease the extraction of the honey from the combs. We will not reveal our recipe. However, the mixture must contain enough sugar to allow fermentation. The residues from this process are still very valuable. This is the raw material for processing beeswax. Other ingredients like citric and tartaric acid, tannin, preservatives, and last not least, the yeast have to be added. The sugar content will be measured with the help of a hydrometer, which indicates the specific gravity of the solution. Honey wine brewed without the addition of fruits often has a very unpleasant taste. Juice from fresh apples is ideal to enhance the taste of the honey wine. Once all the ingredients are mixed and filled into 200-liter drums, the fermentation of the must starts. The drum is closed with a fermentation valve. This allows the carbon dioxide to escape and to prevent bacteria and insects from entering. After approximately 3 weeks, the active fermentation is over and the mixture will slowly develop into wine. This is the time when the honey wine has to be raked first time and is then put in a cool place to allow the maturing process to complete. Every 2 months, the wine has to be transferred from one container to another in order to remove the wine from the lees. The maturing period lasts for 1 year until the mead has really developed a pleasant taste and aroma. Making wines, one has to work thoroughly and stick to timetables. Keeping records and the timely application of working steps is very important. Building a wine cellar is the only way to provide a cool place for storing honey wine in a country like Zambia with a hot climate. During the rainy season, the groundwater rose to such a level that work became difficult. There is no third road to Mpongwe, and transporting goods becomes really a problem during the rain season. Finally, before bottling, the alcohol content has to be measured and the honey wine has to be tested. Whether it is a dry, semi-sweet or sweet honey wine is determined by the share of water and honey when the mast is prepared in the beginning.
Mwana, tula tula tula, mwana mwana mwana, tula 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 tula.
Another way of preparing honey for sale is to pack different types of honey in gift boxes. Or in various shapes of packing and types of honey and mead.
We have seen how honey is processed and honey wine is brewed. Still, there is another product which can be processed from the comb pieces or from the residues after washing the pressing cakes. There are some simple methods to process beeswax. A little water is boiled and then the comb pieces are put into the hot water.
The mixture has to be stirred until the beeswax has become liquid and has separated from the combs. Usually, the first time the wax is not clean enough and the processing has to be done again. Be careful because the wax is still very hot and one can easily burn his hands. Boiling is now repeated and the whole process has to be done again in order to obtain clean beeswax cakes. The mixture is poured into a cloth, which can be a sack or even a maize bag. The liquid beeswax is filtered and squeezed through the cloth. The liquid wax will get solid overnight, and the next day the beeswax cake can be used for further processing into candles. These simple methods of processing beeswax may be sufficient if beeswax is used for baking top bars or to make candles at home. However, if candles shall be made for sale, a proper device is needed for purifying the beeswax. The best method is to use a steam wax extractor, which renders the cleanest beeswax. The most important component of the candle is the wick. Don't try even to make your own wick from cotton, wool, sisal, or other improvised materials. It will definitely fail. Each candle needs a special wick depending on its size. Wick and mods have to be imported from countries where there is such an industry. Rubbers give stability to the soft mods. The beeswax cakes are cut into pieces and the melting must be done in a water bath, keeping the temperature of the wax moderate and not boiling. The wax is poured into the mold, which is upside down, and then left for cooling. After removing the candle, the bottom has to be cut straight. Wrapping the candles prevents the loss of color and let them look much better. Last but not least, a beekeeping enterprise should also provide protective clothing and all the necessary tools and equipment for beekeeping.
Tule 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 mbeza tule 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 mbeza tule atola mwana tule haika mchitondo tule tula tiwane tule tule tula tiwane tule 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 mbeza tule tula 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 mbeza tula atola mwana mbeza tula haika mchitondo.
The beekeeping enterprise manufactures all items needed for beekeeping and is selling them to all parts of Zambia. The success of marketing and sales of bee products depends on many factors. The display and the way bee products are packed is one important issue to be tackled. Pricing must guarantee sufficient profit for the sound running of the business. A reasonable margin for the producer, usually small-scale farmers, is also vital to a marketing enterprise in order to purchase adequate quantities. However, honey must be affordable to customers. This is a big problem in Zambia, where costs of production are tremendously high and honey is considered a luxury and not affordable for many people. A cheaper way of advertising may be through leaflets, attracting customers to come to the nearby shop at the processing plant. To sell honey and different bee products on a larger scale, supermarkets and other urban outlets have to be targeted. For honey wine, small drinking outlets have been proved fast-selling. Yet, the higher duty usually imposed on alcoholic beverages may be a deterrent to customers. One should also be very careful in giving credit to shop owners, since the recovery of debts can be very difficult and costly. Markets and trade fairs are also very promising for the sales of bee products. The sales staff has to be well trained and should be knowledgeable in beekeeping and the quality aspects of honey in order to answer the many questions to come.
The beekeeper who has acquired or constructed hives must occupy them with bees. To wait for bees to come has little chance. Wild bees prefer to settle in higher places or cavities, and therefore the first step of managing bees means catching them. There are 3 basic ways on how to obtain bees. The first one is to dig out wild bees, which are sometimes found in ground holes, or to remove bees from all sorts of cavities, like here in a calabash or tins. The second way is to catch a swarm or cluster of bees, often found hanging from branches or in a tree, or to suspend a swarm box which will be occupied by bees searching for a new home. The first option is not very promising. It is difficult to catch the queen. The combs get destroyed in the operation, and usually the bees do not stay in the new hive. Catching a swarm is very easy. Clusters of bees hanging from branches are found throughout the year, though most of them are found during the swarming season and in the raining period. The beekeeper has to be prepared and all the items needed have to be ready. A cardboard box, a sack with no hose, a piece of string to tie up the sack, a queen cage or matchbox, a brush for the bees, and the usual equipment a beekeeper needs anyway, like a smoker and a veil. Bees in a swarm are commonly very docile, since they do not have honey or brood to defend. Therefore, swarms may be caught without any protective clothes. Once a cluster of bees has been discovered, the beekeeper moves to the site with all the equipment. The swarm may be smoked gently, but not too much to avoid bees flying away. Simply shaking the bees into the carton box. The box shall be left for some minutes until all the bees have entered. Sometimes bees cluster outside the swarm boxes without entering and start settling and building combs. These bees can also be brushed into a box. Putting the box at the ground and all bees still flying around will soon follow others entering the box. After some time, the box is opened and the search for the queen starts. If there are too many bees and the queen is hiding, bumping the box will help because the bees start forming new clusters around her. With some exercising, it becomes easy to identify and catch the queen.
She's on top now.
Here you can see for yourself how she differs from the worker bees. The queen is confined in a matchbox, leaving a small gap open to allow the worker bees to be in touch with her. After returning the queen cage into the carton, the cardboard box is now put into a sack which is tied up. As long as the queen is with the bees, they will always remain with her. The queen may also be confined using a queen cage, which will be suspended on a top bar. After closing the hive, the queen will remain in her cage for a few days, until the bees have started building combs. The queen has then to be released to allow her to start laying eggs. Most swarms or clusters of bees are found high up in trees, where a beekeeper is facing problems in catching them. In this case, a swarm catching bag can help, which is easily made by the beekeeper himself. With this device, bees can be caught at an awkward place. Here, instead of a cardboard box, a swarm box is used to transfer the bees to their new hive. The bees usually like to choose their new home themselves and have a high tendency for absconding if they are forced into a new home. In fact, almost every second bee colony caught in this way is absconding. Using swarm boxes is the safest and most promising method of catching bees because the bees choose this swarm themselves. They will start building combs and generate brood and even honey after some time. How long it will take until such a box is occupied depends on circumstances like climate and season, flowering of trees, and how many bees are found in a certain area. In Kaflafta, most of the swarm boxes get occupied within 1 week, though sometimes it may take even a month. Once bees have settled in a swarm box, they should at least stay for a minimum of 2 weeks before the beekeeper prepares the transfer. Leaving them for too long may also lead to absconding if the bees expand rapidly during the flowering season and the swarm box becomes too small. The best time to transfer the swarm box with the bees to their new hive is at dusk, when almost all the bees have entered. The entrance halls are closed with papers. The swarm box is carefully lowered. Shaking and bumping should be avoided, or else the combs may break.
Hey, what did you? Someone cut this.
The transfer of the colony will take place early next morning. The swarm box is put on top of the new hive, and the entrance halls are opened. In the morning, the new hive is prepared by removing top bars, creating a wide opening. Now the combs can be transferred one by one together with the bees to the hive. Each comb has to be inspected in order to check for the queen and for the existing eggs and larvae. Once the queen is discovered, she may be caught and confined for some days in a queen cage. If larvae is present, usually the bees will not abscond and the queen may be just transferred with the comb into the hive. All the new combs are shifted to one end of the hive and the remaining bees in the swarm box are brushed into the hive. Leaving an opening for the bees, which are still flying around, will attract soon all bees to enter their new home. After some minutes, the hive can be closed, the bees feel comfortable, and will start expanding soon. To keep bees successfully needs comprehensive knowledge in bee biology and behavior, in ecology and management methods, In Zambia, as elsewhere in the world, the season of the year is the determining factor for what has to be done. So let's look at the calendar and follow the beekeeper in his work throughout the year, starting with March. The last rainfalls appear and the bee colonies are usually very small. All honey has been eaten and finished in the hive long time ago, and the bees are eagerly waiting for the trees and other plants to start flowering. In times of food shortages, particularly before the flowering of trees starts, bees visit the maize mills to use the flour as a pollen substitute. In Zambia, the woodland trees are the main source of food for the bees. Mutondo starts usually flowering in February or March, continuing up to May in some parts of the country. Mutondo is one of the most common trees in the Miombo woodlands, thus providing enough nectar for a honey harvesting season. In those areas where Mutondo is not present, there will be only one annual harvesting season in December. Other bee plants flowering around March to April supplement the bees with nectar and pollen, which is the most important food for the young larvae to grow. Usually, early March it is time to open the beehive and to check for the condition of the colony. First, the bees have to be smoked to keep them calm and under control. Old combs unattended by bees have to be cut out. This creates space for building new combs once the flowering of trees will start. Each hive should be checked for the queen. If she appears, there is nothing to worry about and the hive may be closed. Sometimes it is difficult to find the queen, but the presence of eggs or larvae indicates that she is active and the bees should not be disturbed further. If a colony has absconded during the rain season, plenty of wax moth larvae will be found eating the left combs. The wax moth larvae is not harmful to active bee colonies because it will only multiply on unattended combs. For the next weeks, the bees should be not disturbed. Once the Mutondo trees start flowering, the bees will bring in a lot of pollen. This can be observed from outside the hive. The number of entrance holes which are busy can tell about the expansion of the colony. During this period, the queen lays up to 2,000 eggs per day. The time of expansion is also the time of swarming. During this time, the hive gets overcrowded with bees, which are even clustering outside the hive. The bees prepare special cells for the new queens. The eggs in these cells grow into queens because of a special high-protein diet called royal jelly. Once the new queens emerge, the old queen leaves the hive followed by almost half of all bees. Even some of the new queens live with a lot of the bees, settling and establishing new colonies elsewhere. The old colony is left with one last queen, and with few bees starting afresh. The swarming period is also the only time for the emergence of drones, the male bees. They are bigger and more clumsy in body size. Drone brood can be easily identified by the larger dome-shaped brood cells. A beekeeper should know how to prevent swarming in order to keep his bees and to secure his honey yields. This film cannot go into detail of management steps. There are a lot of books available, or a course should be attended to learn about this topic. The swarming period is the most busy time for a beekeeper because the hives have to be checked every 10 days over a period of approximately 4 weeks. However, once the swarming season is over, the beekeeper can relax and wait for the nectar to be collected by the bees. Early May, the bees start capping the honey cells with a layer of wax. This honeycomb is not yet ripe for harvesting and contains still too much water. The beekeeper should wait until most of the honeycombs are fully sealed on both sides. Finally, at the end of May, the great moment has come. If the beekeeper has not checked the hive in time, all 30 top bars may be with combs attached. It can be cumbersome to open the first one. The bees are brushed off and the fully sealed comb can be harvested. Harvesting in May, June, early in the morning is quite easy because the weather is cool and the bees are stiff. Soon after the harvest, the number of bees in a hive decreases rapidly. The queen reduces egg laying because there is no food available anymore. The drones have no duty left after fertilizing the queens. Upon their return from their last flights, they are denied entry and they have to die from starvation in front of the hive. In July, the weather becomes cold and windy, and no trees are flowering before the end of August. If the beekeeper has not left enough honey to the bees, they will soon starve and migrate for greener pastures. In fact, July and August are the months with the most abscondings, and disturbance of bees should be kept to a minimum. Swarm boxes should be resuspended during this period. If they get occupied in July, the transfer should be delayed until first trees start flowering and some food becomes available. In opposite to the first season, in which Mutondo tree provides the main nectar source, the coming season offers an abundance of flowering trees over several months. During August, the beekeeper should just check for absconded colonies and prepare those hives for new occupation. The flowering of the Mpongwe tree opens the season, and soon other important trees follow. The bees follow the same development cycle like during the first season. With the opening of flowers, pollen is available as food for the young bees. The number of bees expand. Drones are emerging and swarming starts. The beekeeper should control swarming alike and check his hives every 10 days during the period of swarming.
Wonderful.
Odd combs may be moved from the center of the brood nest to the end of the colony, where they will be filled soon with honey. The remaining gap will be closed with an empty top bar. The bees will close the gap in their brood nest by building a fresh comb in which the queen likes to place eggs. In October, the climate sometimes becomes unbearable hot. The woodland gets very dry and bees become easily aggressive during the day. Access to water and shade are the most essential requirements for the bees at this time. It is a miracle of nature that after 7 months without any raindrop, the peak flowering season appears. This is the time when nectar is collected by the bees and placed into the comb cells. At any time, things can get wrong in the beehive. The queen may die or get lost during the mating flight. Here, drones appear after the end of the swarming season, and the number of bees is too low in comparison to the number of combs. Here, in comparison, a normal comb with drone brood during the swarming season. Shaking the bees off, no worker brood is there and the found. Definitely, this problem is attributed to the loss of the queen. In this case, the bees have failed to raise an emergency queen. The worker bees have started laying unfertilized eggs which develop into drones. If this has continued for some time, the colony is lost and can only be dissolved. Another hazard during the hot season are bushfires, which sweep even through villages, leaving huge tracks of destruction. Those beekeepers with grass shelters have to be prepared and clear the surrounding of the hives. Towards the end of October, flowering of most woodland trees come to an end. But Mutobo remains flowering up to November, when the first showers of rain appear. The last resort for the bees are some fruit trees, shrubs and grasses from which they collect pollen in the early morning. Nowadays, many beekeepers experience theft of honey and even destruction of their hives. These hives were set up in the woodland, but top-bar hive beekeeping is designed to keep the bees near the village or adjacent to the home.
This mbalase you see here is room belongs to a farmer who wanted to start beekeeping. As you can see, the hives are broken, and he used insecticides to kill termites which invaded these hives. But this insecticide kills all the bees, and it's a long-lasting insecticide which makes it impossible for a farmer to keep bees in this place. Bees cannot be kept in this place because of the insecticide the farmer has used.
Soon there will be no food for the bees outside the hive. Therefore, the beekeeper should detect the right time for harvesting, before the bees turn to their own honey. A much bigger problem is the maintenance of beehives and shelters. Many mbalasas collapse during the rain season. Those beekeepers who did not rethatch their shelter in time or did not replace weak poles face heavy losses during the rain period. However, many swarm boxes get occupied during the rain period, and plenty of new colonies may help the beekeeper to compensate the losses. In Zambia, beekeeping is dependent on catching swarms for starting new colonies, since there is no queen breeding done. The knowledge and experience of most beekeepers who do top-bar hive beekeeping is still limited. The time will come for more sophisticated management steps being practiced, and beekeeping will become attractive for more and more farmers.